Phase 3. Fighting and negotiating. Ending the war. From 1986 to October 1989, this phase involved holding out, fighting, negotiating, and ending the war. The main battlefield was still in Vientiane, Hajian. According to Major General Nguyen G.C. Hai, former Deputy Commander of Military Region 2, head of the National Veterans Liaison Committee for the Vientiane Front, in 1986, both we and the enemy primarily used artillery and mortar to attack defensive positions, inflicting casualties on each other. By October 1986, after a period of shelling our defensive positions with artillery and mortar, the enemy particularly focused their fire on elevations 1100 and 1000, and However, the enemy's attacks were gradually repelled by us. This was also the time when we began to implement the psychological warfare strategy, enhancing the work of mobilizing troops and undermining the fighting spirit of the enemy forces on the front. Along with that, the political report of the party at the 6th National Congress in December 1986 clearly expressed Vietnam's goodwill for peace when it made the statement, "The government and people of Vietnam consistently and unwaveringly value and are determined to do their utmost to restore the friendship between the people of the two countries, and have proposed many initiatives to normalize relations between our country and the People's Republic of China as soon as possible. Our stance is to prioritize the fundamental and long-term interests of both countries. We believe it is time for both sides to sit down together to negotiate and resolve both immediate and long-term issues in the relationship between the two countries. Once again, we officially declare that Vietnam is ready to negotiate with China at any time, at any level, and anywhere to normalize relations between the two countries for the benefit of the people of both nations, for peace in Southeast Asia and the world." With this perspective, the situation of both fighting and negotiating gradually took shape and pushed the war into a new, less tense state. By 1987, the situation of the war in the Vientiane battlefield was mostly tense only at the beginning of the year when the enemy changed troops. To demonstrate goodwill for peace, on June 26, 1987, Prime Minister Pham Minh Hinh sent a verbal message to Deng Xiaoping proposing a private meeting between Vietnam and China to cooperate in promoting the process of resolving the Cambodian issue. In 1988, China did not organize any large-scale attacks on our defensive positions, but mainly used artillery to bombard our defensive positions and inflict casualties on our forces. In the spirit of peace, Vietnam has not complicated the issue further, but has sought to resolve it through negotiation and dialogue. On July 15, 1988, Foreign Minister Nguyen Co Thach proposed a series of measures to China aimed at reducing tensions in the bilateral relationship. We also proactively withdrew our main forces from the 40 kilometers border. As a result, from the end of 1988, the Chinese authorities ordered their troops to cease shelling into Vietnamese territory. Entering 1989, China stopped shelling the Vientiane front. On May 15, 1989, the enemy began detonating explosives to destroy fortifications at Hill 233 and several other locations. Starting since then, both sides have ceased fire along the entire northern border of Vietnam. By October 1989, China had completely withdrawn its troops from Vietnamese territory. At this point, the Vietnam-China border war truly came to an end. After the unofficial summit between Vietnam and China in Chengdu, China from September 3 to 4, 1990, the relationship between the two countries began to show more positive developments. In 1991, the two countries officially normalized their relations. Thus, looking back at the events, it can be seen that, from a wartime perspective, the conflict ended in October 1989, when the main forces of both sides had withdrawn from the border between the two countries and military activities had ceased. This war took place continuously from February 1979 to October 1989, which amounts to 10 years if calculated by year, but more than 10 years if calculated by month. During this time, tens of thousands of Vietnamese compatriots and soldiers fell, bravely sacrificing themselves to resist and thwart China's invasion plans, firmly protecting the independence, freedom, and territorial integrity of the nation. The study of the Vietnam-China border, or 1979 to 1989, is not intended to rekindle or create divisions and animosities between the Vietnamese and Chinese peoples, but rather to honor the Vietnamese soldiers who fought and sacrificed, and from that, to appreciate the current peace.